So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Something Funny panel for the Trinity Prep Author Fest. So I have with me today Ed Massessa, who's a New York Times best-selling author. He's written the middle grade Wand Makers series, picture books, and books for early readers. I also have Jeff Strand. He's a 4-time Bram Stoker Award winner and author of many books, too many to count. I have Tara Lazar, the author of numerous middle grade and picture books. Her latest, Bloop, is about a green alien who needs to conquer the earth. Victor Pinero, who has written the middle grade Time Villains book, which is a Kirkus Best Middle Grade book for 2021. And Margaret Minks, who has the Poplar Lane series. All are fast and funny and really quirky. And I am excited to visit with all of y'all today about your books. So the first question I have is, where do you get the inspiration for the funny lines, scenes, and characters in your stories?
Life in general.
Life in general?
Yeah, the best kind of humor is things that kids see every day and that they can relate to. So it's that everyday slice of life. It's like Jerry Seinfeld, but for kids.
Yeah, I agree.
No,
I'm sorry, what was that?
Seinfeld, it's about nothing.
Oh, right.
Well, but it's about nothing and everything, because everything around you is funny every day. If you just look at it a certain way, you just got to skew it a certain way. I mean, humor is all about surprise. And I took it from her, so you can go back.
Oh, no, that's okay.
For you.
I was going to say that one of the scenes in my first book was pretty much word for word a conversation I had with my niece. And I wrote it down as soon as we had the conversation. And she thinks it's so funny. And I'm like, no, really, you said that. It's about her being a fashion designer. But she called it designive. And like, I just thought it was so cute. And so I just took it word for word what she said, because it wouldn't be as funny if I translated it. So yeah, exactly like Ed was saying, from kids themselves, for sure.
For me, it's just lots and lots and lots of brainstorming, because I'm not one of those authors who has 50 book ideas that they can't wait to write. It's like, right, I need a new idea now, and then just trying to come up with something that is funny enough in concept that it can sustain 300 pages of jokes. So it's like, I'll have lots of ideas and say, okay, but am I going to run out of ideas halfway through? So then it's like, okay, what if some misfit kids went off to make their own zombie movie? Yeah, I can get 300 pages out of that. And then I come up with the high level funny scenes. And then once I'm there, the actual lines kind of come naturally, but it's a long road to get to the actual outlining process.
I love that. I would say, similar to what a lot of you said, I think the only other thing is I like to take notes. So I have one of my notes is like kind of like things that I think comedians write for stand-up routines, but I'm never going to do stand-up. So it's just things I observe that I might look at later. And then I also like taking note of people that I meet that I'm like, okay, that's a character. Like that is 100% a character. And then just having kind of like an ongoing list and then merging them and combining them. But
Very good. So this next question is from a 9th grader. With everything going on in the world, do you think authors should or need to include more humor in their writing?
Oh, yes. Of course. That's kind of why I write funny, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world around you that is there to make you worry or make you feel anxious. And, reading something funny is an escape from that. And it keeps things light and it keeps things, interesting. I don't want to be bogged down in all the stuff going on out there. I want to be, embraced with something that's going to make me laugh and feel good.
Yeah, I don't write at the ninth grade level. Mine is more for much younger children, but I read all the periodicals about the coming out, all the books that are coming out in the industry and that kind of thing. And so many of them are so serious and issue oriented and that kind of thing. And that's not me. I don't, I could probably find an issue to write to, but I don't see the point, And so when I write, I have my two most recent books. There was an old dog who needed a nap. It doesn't get any more simpler than that, and Snowman's Big Adventure. Those are my two most recent books, but they're nothing but fun. It's not, there's no issue except that the dog can't sleep. And it's kind of a biography, but but yeah, to answer his question directly, absolutely. Need more humor in books.
I think
I
back to
started
what I
writing.
liked.
Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Oh, sorry about that. I was writing humor for kids, and then I wrote a novel that I had to put in a drawer because it's not working out. But it was darker. It was dark. And then my daughter, she's only 6 now, but she was like, I want you to write something funny. So we're working on something together about a school of stinky animals. It's like, I don't think that a couple of years ago I would have like embraced that as much, but talking to her and just her joy, seeing her joy and the funny stuff makes me want to write funnier things. Yeah.
I want to read that.
Thank you. I need to write it. But she's really cute. She's helping me illustrate. Yeah.
I would say the only other thing is like part of me wonders, I try to think about what I would have liked as a kid, or even anyone I knew as a kid. Like I just feel like I also write like for younger, like middle grade, and I don't remember that many kids my age when I was a kid who would be super into reading very serious books. Like we wanted to read the funny, kind of fun madcap books. That's why I like writing.
I mean, just look at I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
I still write dark horror stuff for adults, although when the quarantines first started, I was definitely veering much more toward the funny stuff. But all my books for kids are just joke silliness. There's no serious issue type stuff. It's just pure fun.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the bestseller list of what's selling out there. You have Wimpy Kid behind me on the wall. You've got Dog Man. You've got Last Kids on Earth. That's the stuff that kids want to read. Babysitter's Club, graphic novels. I mean, it's light.
Oh, sorry. I'm Italian. I talk over people. Sorry. But I think a lot of the issue books that are out right now they're for adults. The adults always think that children need to be taught something. So let's get this social issue in a book, or no, I don't think children need to be taught anything. I just think that if they're going to read a book, they want to be entertained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the entertainment factor is big. So how would you, or could you, or is it important to strike a balance between serious and silly? Or is it just all silly all the time? Because I know that there's a balance in some of them.
Yeah. So I used to do improv comedy, and there was a big motto to that, which was truth in comedy. And so for me, it's important that comedy shows all sides. And I wouldn't say I did it on purpose, but I mean, I found that the scenes kind of balanced each other. It was a novel, so I mean, there's a lot of room for dynamics. But it did kind of come out naturally through the truth, if that makes sense, both the comedy and the more dramatic. And hopefully it didn't come across as preachy, because I do feel like what you're saying, kids are sensitive to didactic things.
Yeah, and you can't hit the punchline without the setup, and the setup's kind of be
right.
The setup's got to be a little bit more serious or something more level headed, and then when you deliver that punchline, you get a greater effect.
Mm-hmm.
I write picture books mostly. And, I find that they're all silly all the time, but every once in a while there's an opportunity to really punch home a heartfelt moment. And it's really great when you can laugh and then cry and then laugh again. Like the
Mhm.
movie Steel Magnolias. I know none of the kids know this movie, but the adults on the panel do. And laughter through tears is my favorite emotion.
You have to have compelling characters and a good story. It can't just be all jokes.
No.
But once I've done that, I don't feel like I need to put quote unquote serious parts in the book. You can't have every line a joke. You have to have moments to breathe. But I don't consider that the serious stuff. I consider that sort of the pauses between the laughs. But I don't think, okay, well, I need to balance this out with a deadly serious moment or any of that. My books are pretty much silliness from beginning to end.
Pauses between the laughs. I like that line. That's good.
That's good. So have you ever been told that you have too much humor in your writing?
Why, yes,
I
frequently.
thought you might say that, Jeff.
It's not for everyone. My books, again, they are just as many jokes as I can cram in there. And that, some people say, well, you need to have the serious moments to balance out the funny stuff. And, it's not meant to be for every audience. My readers, a lot of times, are the people who are like, I don't even like to read. I didn't like to read until I read one of your books. And it was so goofy and stupid that I finally found a book I enjoy. So that's kind of my target audience. My target audience aren't the people looking for the deep, serious, issue-oriented books. So yeah, I absolutely. And with my adult stuff, the horror novels have lots of humor and a lot of people like, I don't want jokes in my horror. Well, then there are other authors available for your reading pleasure, not me.
True.
Yeah, but Jeff, having read some of your books myself, I mean, it's not the funny that hits me, it's the cleverness of them. And I think that's, it doesn't have to be like laugh out loud kind of a thing. There's that clever level that all right, I see what he's doing, kind of like
With my adult stuff, I don't try to be funny throughout. With the kid stuff, absolutely, I'm trying to be funny as funny as I can be from beginning to end.
I grew up with a very funny father. He was always throwing out one-liners, and my brother and I were kind of in competition with one another to throw back a funny one-liner all the time. So when I'm writing, that's what's going on in my head. Is my dad and my brother trying to like, throw in a funny line and me trying to beat them.
Yeah, I think at least with what I've written so far, there's definitely the first draft version and the last draft version. And the first draft is always like, just bring it back a little bit. It's a little too wild. So I'm hoping I get to a point where I can kind of like what you're saying, Jeff, like make it as funny as I want it to be, but I don't know, find a way to get that through.
Well, my first novel, How to Rescue a Dead Princess, was any joke I could think of went in there. I didn't want to cut anything. And you can tell that's like it tries too hard. I want to be as funny as possible without trying too hard. And so I have matured out of doing that.
All right, so this is a student question. What's the difference between fun and funny in your writing?
I think fun is entertaining, enjoyable, and funny is haha. Funny has to have an actual laugh, or at least an internal laugh where you recognize the punchline. Fun can just be a jolly ride.
Mm-hmm.
I think of fun is what Ed was saying about clever sometimes, like more, yeah, what you were saying. It's kind of like, oh, this is exciting, or this is like interesting. Something like that is fun. Something funny I take more as observational. I don't know. I don't think it has to be haha, but that's not, I don't know. I think it depends on the humor, but
I think often I feel like if you can land a really interesting hook, that often makes it fun, where you read like, oh, this sounds like a fun book. And it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be necessarily humorous. It's just like there's a really compelling hook, or like the mix of characters in it, just there's something very fun about it. It doesn't necessarily have to be haha funny. It's just like, this is a super enjoyable read that I keep coming back to.
Well, the easiest answer to that question is and why.
And
Get
why?
it? Get it? Fun, funny. Get it?
Got it.
And I wrote a book called 789, and my intention when I wrote this book was to find a joke that every kid knows. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. So the premise is fun because it takes a well-known joke and it makes a backstory for that joke. But then in it are jokes that make you laugh. They're funny. So fun, like I agree, what was said before is a situation that you find yourself in, or the reader finds the characters, and the situation is fun. But then the jokes that can come one after another and are haha funny.
All right, I have another student question.
Hi, my name is Ajay. What are the hardest and easiest parts of writing humor?
I think the hardest part is just coming up with a general premise or concept for the book itself. And then it seems that I can roll pretty quickly once, like Jeff said earlier, he finds a funny premise or situation, and then you can roll with it for like 300 pages. He can roll with it for 300 pages. I've got 32 pages, and then I'm done.
I agree. I feel like it's
That's
premise.
the answer I have.
I was just gonna say, I agree 100%. I think premise is the hard part. I think characters can sometimes be tricky. And I think once you get the characters nailed to a certain extent, I feel like dialogue to me is the easiest because you can just riff and go nuts and then you'll reel it in later. But for now, it's just like.
Yeah. I agree. I write my dialogue. I mean, pretty much as my scenes in my first draft. It's mostly just dialogue, even if it's in internal dialogue. But because that's easier for me, like what you're saying for humor, because I think humor comes from characters mostly. Yeah.
All right, so I know some of you write picture books and some of you write middle grade. What do you think each of those two areas, what are the challenges that are specific to those two areas? Because I know a lot of authors that write longer stories can't imagine writing a picture book that that the words are so concise, and then vice versa. It's kind of like, I can't imagine teaching kindergartners. Give me an eighth grader any day. Give me an eighth grader any day. But kindergarten, oh my gosh, those teachers are going to have a special place in heaven for sure.
I've never published a picture book. I've written a couple of them, and the big challenge with picture books is every single page has to deliver. Like with the longer books, you don't, every chapter has to be good, but not, you have more space to work. And with a picture book, every single page had to be great.
Well, it's not just every single page, it's every single word. It's the picture book has so few words that everyone has to have a very specific purpose to be on the page. And that's where the revision process comes in, as Victor was saying earlier too. The first draft is the roughest, but yeah.
Tara, is it Tara or Tara? I'm sorry.
It's neither, thank you. No.
Oh.
My name is Tara, and I have learned from other people that is a very specific Jersey accent. Not a lot of people can do it. So I say it's like Tara, like tap dancing.
Tara.
Oh, good.
Well, I was going to ask, do you illustrate your books?
I do not. You
okay.
do not want to see my illustrations. They are not interesting in the least bit.
Well, that's fascinating to me for you to be putting words that probably look a certain way in your head that have nothing to do with the finish. I don't know. You can explain that, but yeah, I'm interested in that.
Well, illustration notes are what you can put in, but I don't like to call them illustration notes. I like to call them action notes because I don't like to imagine what my characters are going to look like or anything like that, like physical appearance, because it's going to be wildly different than anything I could ever imagine. And I can't dictate that. But if there's an action that I need to happen in order to make a joke work, like in first day of circus school, I hope you have a blast and he gets shot out of a cannon. I have to say that he gets shot out of a cannon or else they're not going to understand the joke. So I write action notes in my manuscript to make sure that the illustrator knows what to do to make that joke happen.
Yeah, art notes, or whatever you want to call them, are essential because they have to, the text has to work hand in hand with the illustration. And in my there was an old dog who needed a nap. The whole joke, the kids are in on the joke, but the dog isn't. The kids see what's going on through the illustration, but the dog doesn't know what's going on. And so, there's that little dynamic where they're in on the joke. And so that's fun for them.
That's superior humor. That's like a definition of humor. There's surprise and the unexpected, but then there's the superiority part of humor where the kid reading the book or there's characters in the book know more than the character themselves, and they get to feel superior in that, and that is a part of where humor comes from. It's just a different kind of humor.
Mhm.
All right, we are down to our last 5 minutes. So I've got one more question that we're asking everyone is, what does your writing process look like? And I suspect that for each of you, that's going to be very different. But I think it's really important, especially for students, to hear about writing process, because a lot of times I think they think that there's like a formula. If I do it this way, I'll be able to, if I create an outline, it's
I
going
wake up at 4 a.m. and
to.
write for 3 hours. No, I do not. I will never wake up at 4 a.m. for any reason whatsoever. But I've seen articles that are like, this author wakes up at 4 a.m. and writes for 5 hours and then has breakfast. And there is no formula. It is all about finding out what works for you specifically. And that happens through a lot of trial and error. I find specifically for me that once I get an idea for a book, I let it marinate a long time. I let it soak into my brain and think about it a lot before I ever sit down to write. And that's my process. But everybody's going to answer this question differently. Go. Next person.
My process changes pretty much day to day. It's not consistent. That's probably because like the last 2 years have been a little much. A lot of homeschooling and entertaining and things like that. So it's kind of grabbing time where I can. We juggling with my husband, and it used to be waking up early, not 4, but I kind of work better on deadlines, whether they're self-imposed or publisher. I don't know if that's just my brain being overly regimented or something, but because I tend to get into my head a lot. If I just have no structure, I will not write anything at all. I'll get distracted. ADHD diagnosed.
I hate structure. That's something that's very different right there. 2 different
right.
I hate structure.
Yeah.
If I have a regimented schedule, I just shut down. I'm not creative anymore.
Yeah.
I think what I like to tell anyone who's trying to write, because it's something that I got stuck with for a while, is I think if you know, whether you're a student or whatever, you're trying to write a book and you're Googling it and you're thinking, you're going to see like the word pantser and you're going to see the word plotter, right? Some people who just write by the seat of their pants and some people who plot it out. And I think that's a really easy way for somebody to get stuck. I feel like I lost 5 to 10 years trying to plot out this epic novel. And then when I finally got to the point that I was going to actually sit and write it, I couldn't write a word. I was like, what is this? And it really took me realizing that, no, I like to, I had the fun of thinking of the stuff as it goes is the challenge. That's the joy I find in it. But I've talked to many people who are the opposite way. And I think most of the people I've talked to fit somewhere in the middle. There's some element, like for me, I like to have a general sense of the hook and maybe a little bit of the outline in my head, and then I just go. But I feel like that always changes.
Yeah, we write identically. I handwrite everything. I sit outside and write. That's where I get my most productive work done. And I always have 3 or 4 books going at the same time so that I don't get stale with any one of them. But I'll pick one, I'll sit there and I do exactly the same thing. It's just I wait for the ideas to kind of come to me, and eventually they do, and then you just spin them off. But I'm always surprised at what I write at the end of the day. I don't go in with any expectation, and when I'm done, it's like, oh, that's kind of a cool day.
I'm with Ed. I like going outside. Like there was a time in the pandemic when I would just sit in my car because I couldn't go like anywhere else. But I mean, changing environment for me is a really like it triggers something. Yeah.
So I need to take my students outside to write.
Yes, they would love that.
They're gonna be wanting me to do that now. So for sure. What does your process look like, Jeff?
Mine changes with each book. I don't like to do outlines, but my young adult publisher makes me. So it's like, if I want to sell the book, they want their 3 to 5 page outline. So I have to do that, which is tough for a comedy book because it's really hard to convey just how funny the book is going to be when I'm sort of describing it at the high level. I like to do is pretty close to Ed and Victor, where I like to know the ending and I like to know some of the stops along the way so I don't get completely lost. But for the most part, I like to make it up a little bit ahead of time. So if I'm on chapter 3, I like to know what happens through chapter 5, but I don't like to know what happens in chapter 6, 7, 8, or 9 because I'm going to change my mind anyway. So I'm never like stuck not knowing what's going to happen next, but I don't like to know more than a little bit ahead of it. Okay. Except for the end, so that I have somewhere that I'm headed towards so I don't get completely sidetracked. But everyone's process is different, and it's real important to know that there's no correct way to do it, because you'll hear people say you have to outline. If you don't outline, you'll get completely lost. Or if you outline, you sap it of every ounce of creative energy, so never outline. Both of those are wrong. Do whatever works for you.
Yes. Very good advice. Well, y'all, we are out of time. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your time and talents, and for bringing us all the laughs through your picture books and your middle grade stories and YA and even adult. And I just appreciate y'all so much. And I'm so glad that you could be part of the Trinity Prep Author Fest today. Thank you very much.
I was really hoping we could be there in person this time.
I know.
Next year.
Oh, next year.
Yes, I'd love to come.
And I would love to have you all in person. Believe me, it's much. And from a planning standpoint, you would think that managing multiple like 40 authors on campus would be really hectic. To me, that's easier than planning it virtually.
Right.
And it's also nice for us to meet everybody else.
The energy and seeing everybody, and then having the kids be so excited. That's what's really cool. Because the ultimate,
this is better than nothing, because this is actually good for me too. For authors to see each other and feel a little bit more motivated.
And we get free cookies at the real event.
Yeah. Well, I know that's true.
Well, thank y'all so much, and hopefully I will see you all in person soon. And I'm really excited to have Victor and Tara. Did I say that right?
No.
Tara.
I'd answer to anything, really.
welcome y'all to the Trinity Prep Author Fest for the first time. So super excited to have some new faces. So
Thank you.
thank you all for being here.
Thank
you
you,
very
Georgia.
Oh, you're so welcome. All right, y'all have a great day.
Everybody.
You too. Bye.